Whether you're a parent or a coach, we all want our kids and athletes to be faster, quicker, to not be the slow kid. But unless you have a boatload of money to throw at a professional sprint coach, or you already have that knowledge base in you, it can be kind of tough to make progress on that goal. My name is Evan Flay, and I am a professional sprint coach and strength and conditioning coach. And today we're going to be talking about 3 things that you can implement right now with your kids and athletes that will guarantee they get faster. Let's get into it. So before we get to the first thing, this all assumes that we have prepped the body the right way, that we've warmed up properly. And if you are in your 30s or older, like me, what we used to do when we warmed up growing up is not going to cut it. Now, there are a lot of different opinions on what the proper warm-up looks like. I feel like I have a pretty good one, so please let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video on that. I'd be happy to. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the athlete's feet, specifically their front foot, something called false stepping. Now, football coaches are probably the most familiar with what a false step is, but for those of you unfamiliar, a false step is basically where if you're running in a straight line when the ball is snapped or someone says 3, 2, 1, go, or the gun goes off, the athlete's front foot lifts up, they push down on their back foot, and then they put their front foot down and then start to move forward. It's a huge waste of time and energy. And in cold weather, it can increase your risk of injuries. That's how a lot of NFL players end up tearing their Achilles. So what we want to avoid is pushing through any foot that is not closest to our target. If you want to go somewhere in front, you have to be pushing through that front foot. If you want to be going to the left, you need to push through the left foot. Otherwise, you're going in the complete opposite direction. How do we fix this? Well, there's 2 ways primarily that you should focus on. If you're a parent and you're just one-on-one with your kid or a couple kids up at the park, or you're a private coach, this first one is probably for you. What you can do is you remove the cue and the start entirely from your practice reps. So you tell this athlete, instead of 3, 2, 1, go, or set go, what you will say is, I want you to load up your front foot with about 65 to 75% of your body weight. And then whenever you are ready, you take off. You go in your own time. All right? Say, I do not care how long it takes you to get ready and to go. You just make sure you push through that front foot. More often than not, that's what's going to happen. All right? If you're a coach or you just have a larger group, especially if it's boys, that's usually not going to work, because especially when we're younger, everything's a competition, everything's a race. The last thing you want as a boy is to be the last one off the line or the last one across the line. And so usually what will happen is if you say go in your own time, one's going to go and then another's going to go because they don't want to be left behind. So that doesn't work. So what you will do is you explain to them what the cadence is. You explain to them that it's not going to be set go, that it's going to be, say, 3, 2, 1, go. And that you're not going to yell it out. 3, 2, 1, go. The go is where the 0 is going to be. Tell them exactly that. Tell them, load up your front foot, that you do not care who is first to the finish line or wherever, that it's not a race and you are not paying attention to that. Say that you don't care if it takes them an extra second after you say go to come off the line, so long as they push through their front foot. Then you stand behind them and you say calmly, 3, 2, 1, go. Just like that. If you yell, it's going to trigger that fight or flight response and all their mechanics are going to go out the window. So that's the first one. The second thing that we're going to be looking at are the arms. Now, this is probably where I see the most issues with youth athletes, and I've coached thousands and thousands of them in my career. Here's the thing. When it comes to sprint mechanics, your arms and your legs, for better or for worse, are directly connected. You will never, ever see someone with horrible upper body mechanics and a horrible arm swing and a beautiful lower body mechanics. It just doesn't work like that. When you see an athlete with really sharp, choppy arms, really fast arms, like they're chopping veggies, chances are you're going to look down and you're going to see really choppy steps. And when that happens, the athlete is more likely to be stood straight up, and that's horrible, right? What you see more often is a much longer, drawn out arm swing. A lot of times they'll be coming across the body. Sometimes you'll see people reaching way up, way out is a big one. A lot of times they'll go completely straight in the back, and that takes a lot of time. So by whenever the legs are ready to perform a perfect rotation and strike when they're sprinting, when they're ready to do that, the arms are not done with their full arm swing. And so your legs are like, okay, well, we have to delay, we have to delay, we have to delay. And how do they do that? Well, they extend the lower leg out. And what do you think hits first? The heel, almost always. If not the heel, then it's just a completely flat foot. In either scenario, it's an instant brake pedal. You're pushing yourself backwards as you're trying to run forwards. That's an issue. And as I've said in previous videos, sprinting is a pushing activity. All right. You cannot push forward if you're landing out in front of you. The only thing you can do is pull, and your hamstring does most of that. And so you're just yanking yourself forward with your hamstring. You're not using a balanced set of muscles, and that creates a whole host of different issues. So how do you fix this? Well, it's very simple, really. There's a bunch of videos out there right now that demonstrate proper arm swings. Again, let me know if you want me to film one. Just keep it all in-house, right? But what an athlete can do is just in their room, a couple times a week, at least to start, you just get in front of a mirror. You do 3 sets of 30 seconds of arm swings, watching yourself in the mirror. Do each set in a different position, seated, kneeling, standing. Like I said, I wouldn't start with more than like 3 times a week, because the goal here is to get an athlete comfortable swinging from their shoulders, not their elbows. Okay, this is very easy. Okay, and you can do it for a very long time. That's why marathoners swing their arms from their elbows. That's why cross-country runners swing from the elbows. Swinging from the shoulders is more powerful, but it's more tiring. So when it comes to sprinting, we need to be swinging from the shoulders, which if you're not used to doing that consistently, you might be a little bit sore the next day. That's normal. But then you gradually build up, and it's important to remember the goal here is not to create robotic mechanics. You want a little bit of relaxation and a little bit of uniqueness, not for the sake of uniqueness, but you don't want to be completely, like scrunched in a narrow hallway with your hands like this. There's so many different ways that coaches explain this. Some people say you should hold your hands like you're holding a pencil or a potato chip. One of the ways that always resonated with me, I sort of just barely pinched my index finger and thumbs together. But as I was taught, run towards your hands, and your hands can come in as close as the midline of your body. So not like this, because that's going to create torso rotation that just completely shuts down your linear speed. But they can come in a little bit, all right? Just so that an athlete doesn't feel like super tight and strained. So the last thing that we're going to focus on is the head. And again, this is a super common one, and specifically the cervical spine. So all these guys up here. This is so important to keep a neutral spine, that is, because if you start sprinting with your chin tucked, you could have the best mechanics from the neck down. All of that goes away immediately if you do that. And I know I've said this in a previous video. If you start sprinting with your chin tucked, even though you know you're not going to fall over, there's a little voice in the back of your head that doesn't believe you. And it freaks out, and it tries to counter that by tipping your hips backwards like you're sitting in a car to keep you from falling over. And when you have a posterior pelvic tilt, that stands your torso straight up, and you're put in the same position as we talked about with the bad arm swing, where you're landing out in front, usually on your heels. These are all reasons, well, the arms and the head, that so many youth athletes run by heel striking. There's some mobility and flexibility things that come into play, but for the most part, it's just bad mechanics. And what's super important with this, and you cannot stress this enough, is that these kids have been moving and running the same way for their entire lives for the most part. So anything that you change, good or bad, is going to feel weird. Tell them, do not automatically associate weird with wrong, because it's not. All right. It's going to feel weird initially. And then you start making some changes. And the first sign that things are improving and changing permanently is if an athlete reverts to their previous bad form and they go, oh, That didn't feel right. All right. That's how you know that you're starting to rewire their software. On the other side of things, if you take off in a sprint and your chin goes, whoa, just like that, it's going to stand you straight up. Okay. And you're going to kill your acceleration phase. And you've essentially turned yourself into a sports car that only has sixth gear available. Okay. Yeah, you'll get up to speed eventually, but it's going to take forever. And with something like this is one of the few things where you can just keep repeating the same coaching point and it actually helps solve the problem. And that is specifically due to the fact that having a neutral spine, okay, where everything is nice and relaxed, just like this, everything is in line, that's comfortable. This, not comfortable. This, not comfortable. Okay. And I always tell my athletes that I'm going to repeat the same thing over and over and over. And I know it's annoying. And I know that you're not ignoring me. I'm just trying to drill it into your basically subconscious because it needs to be subconscious. You can't be thinking about any of this stuff when you're on the soccer field or lacrosse field or the basketball court or football field, whatever. It has to be automatic. And it does take time to rewire some of these things. So when you start a sprint rep, all right, in like a 2-point starting stand, your chest should be pitched over and your eyes should be on the ground about 5 feet in front of you, roughly. As the athlete starts to take off, you just tell them to let their torso, let their chest dictate how quickly their face rises up. It's as simple as that. That's it. Those are the things that you can do. All right. Yes, there's a lot more that goes into sprinting. All right. And I can make a ton more videos on this stuff. And in fact, I'm going to. But it's super important with something as technical as sprinting to not overcomplicate it right off the bat. You don't need crazy pieces of equipment. You don't need crazy amounts of like sports science. You need a foundation. You need the basics. And that's what these 3 things are. All right. Whether I'm working with Olympians or an 8-year-old, these are the things we cover first. Because once we fix those, then the real picture becomes clear. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. I love doing this. I would love to get your feedback on everything. And let me know if this worked for you. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm in my own comment section all day, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. All right. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time.